Joining us now, Republican Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee. Congressman, thanks for coming back on the show. Appreciate it. All right, let me ask you about this report from the Ethics Committee. Any reason that if the Senate wants it, that they shouldn't be able to have it?
Well, it does away with what protocol is. You know, we've the Justice Department that hates Matt Gaetz's guts threw the case out against him. So I'm not sure. I don't know what's valid here. I don't know that I can't imagine with the hundreds, literally hundreds of attorneys at the Justice Department's disposal, if they wanted to get Matt, I think if they had something on him, they would have gotten him. So I'm not really sure where this report goes and what it does, but you know, that's going to be left up to the Ethics Committee.
But you'd agree, yeah, understood. You'd agree. I mean, there's a different standard to bring a criminal case than with regard to evaluating a congressional ethics report. And I would assume if the shoe was on the other foot, right, and this was a Democratic president nominating a controversial AG, you'd want to see that report, right?
If I was the one making the decision, but I'm not one of those that's making that decision. But still, I mean, honestly, we've got rules to follow. Are we going to follow them or not? You know, that's the bottom line. And I think, too, you're going to see a lot of these past reports that are there that could possibly be released, too. So if we're going to release one, release them all. And then maybe we do away with the Ethics Committee as a whole and just release everything they have. There's no secrecy there. So I don't know. You know, I go back to my original premise, though. The Justice Department, if they would have had anything on Matt, they would have. I mean, here's the guy who's exposed. You know, he issued Hunter Biden's laptop information as, you know, for public record, and he went after the Justice Department when they would arrest people that had the audacity of wanting to pray in front of an abortion clinic. They arrest them in the middle of the night in their underwear at gunpoint in front of their children. The same Justice Department that called parents who had the crazy idea of going to a school board meeting to complain about what their kids were being taught were labeled domestic terrorists. And the Justice Department said that did not happen when, in fact, it did. And Matt Gaetz is one of those that was responsible for exposing it. So I dare say if they had anything of any legitimacy on Matt, that would have come out.
So it can't possibly have been that despite the fact that they had a witness and maybe more than one who was willing to point the finger at Matt Gaetz, that they decided that maybe, A, either they didn't have quite enough, or B, maybe because of who he was, maybe it's not a great idea. There's no way that they could ever potentially get credit for not prosecuting him, right?
I wouldn't think so, but right. Again, they chose not to prosecute him. That's
true. That's true. And I think that's relevant. But again, if that's the case, then I would think that a Republican-led ethics committee report shouldn't be a big issue for him. But let me ask you a big picture. I mean, don't you wish, and again, you're going to probably tell me it wasn't your choice, but don't you wish that President-elect Trump had selected some folks, putting aside the good people that he nominated, when it comes to some of these high-profile, controversial nominations, on some of the folks that he hadn't gone this far?
No, because I think those issues need to be raised. And in Washington, D.C., everybody wants to call it a swamp, but it's really just a sewer. And it is full of corruptions. Both parties are corrupt to the core. And Donald Trump comes in and he ran on something a little different. And that's why you saw more Hispanics, more black folks, more folks of color that decided to vote for him. People in suburban housewives voted for him. Different groups voted for him this time because they're fed up with government. They're fed up with a FEMA that gives $1 billion away to illegals when people in Upper East Tennessee and North Carolina are doing without a government that spent $200 billion in Ukraine, and people in Maui are doing without. Still, they have not received their compensation. You know, so and things are clearly out of whack from top to bottom in Washington, D.C. And I'm afraid that's something that the people across the aisle, some of them still don't understand. They lost this election, and elections have consequences, and they're about ready to see those consequences. And one other thing is the Doge, the Doge thing. We haven't talked about that yet, but they're not. Everybody's saying, well, they're not going to operate within Congress. Well, good, because Congress doesn't run this government. It's the shadow government. It's the second, third, fourth tier layer bureaucrats that are unelected that continue to wreck this country, and we don't have the guts to do anything about it because half of Congress is compromised, the other half doesn't care.
Well, there's no doubt there's going to be a major shakeup, and you're right. That's exactly what Donald Trump ran on. The question is whether some of these folks who he has selected to lead that shakeup are the right folks, and that will be the decision of Republicans in the Senate. It won't be the decision of the Democrats. It'll be your party.
Look at Mr. Kennedy. I mean, everybody's after him because of the science, yet this is the party that's telling kids that men can have babies, and they're telling us to follow the science. I mean, come on. This thing is out of whack. The Democrat Party has left their base, and that's why they've lost these elections.
Congressman Tim Burchett.